Thank you for that sacred music. Will you please join your hearts with mine in prayer? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be pleasing unto you, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. Many of you were here 2 weeks ago when we talked about our fears. Right? We named them, we wrote them down, we acknowledged them with deep breathing, and we posted them on the wall. Not because writing them down and posting them makes them go away, but because when we name things, they lose a bit of their power. And it forces us to put into words things that may be holding unnamed power in our hearts and in our minds. A tiny bit like making a grocery list in the middle of the night so that your brain can stop cycling through the list out of a concern that the baking soda won't get bought and then the cookie plans won't play out as planned, right? Just to get it out. Then last week, we reflected on God being at work, even in the presence of our fears. God's work is never stopped, and so we look for glimmers of hope as we go about our days. And when we see those glimmers, we can join in, perhaps making that glimmer a little bit brighter. A glimmer this week might have been those working at Vos Elementary School to be sure that families have food in their homes. Members of our mission and social justice team made that glimmer a bit brighter by using gifts from you all to shop for food and take it to Vos Elementary to be distributed along with donations from other places. Now, this may not have changed a broken system, but I have no doubt that it helped those families immensely. And the partnership with Vos Elementary means that they have let us know about other needs that have more to do with presence than money. If you're interested in volunteering on your own and feel like you have time, then I didn't give her a warning, but I think you can talk to Di Bennett and, talk to you. And find out more about it and it can help make the connection for you. So please take that under consideration because that help with food has been a glimmer of hope in their darkness and therefore also in ours. And other help we can give them would do similarly. Now, Jeremiah and Mary serve as great examples for us. Jeremiah was called by God, and his response wasn't to pop up enthusiastically and say, yes, yes, how may I help? No, he responded, I'm only a boy. When Jeremiah was called to be a prophet, the nation of Judah in which he lived was in a turbulent period of geopolitical transition. It was caught between the collapsing Assyrian Empire and the rising Babylonian Empire. Egypt was also vying for power. They were in the midst of a lot of confusing conflict. There was very little that felt solid and dependable. Power plays were everywhere. Jerusalem experienced internal political bickering. We have no idea what that's like. And deep factions, often divided between pro-Egyptian and pro-Babylonian leanings. Jeremiah's call was to warn that Judah's disobedience and idolatry, coupled with their political alliances and resistance to Babylon, would bring God's judgment and destruction. There's a message every kid wants to bring to a nation. His unpopular message, calling for surrender to Babylon as God's instrument, led to persecution and accusations of treason. In retrospect, it's pretty easy to see why he might have been fearful and reticent to fulfill the call. In essence, Jeremiah's ministry unfolded during Judah's final decades, witnessing the collapse of old empires and the rise of Babylon, with his prophecies reflecting the desperate political struggle and the spiritual corruption leading to national ruin. Now, we don't know if Jeremiah's response of, I am only a boy, was a knee-jerk response, or if it was said in shock that he was being called. But it does seem like his response represents apprehension and fear. He was probably between 17 and 20 years old, yet God equips Jeremiah for the journey ahead. God gives him the words he is to take to the people. God gives him the strength. Likewise, Mary, right? Mary is young, most likely around 15 or 16 years old. Can you imagine? She's not yet married, as we know. And this role the angel tells her about could only be overwhelming. Already she's living in an empire that is not kind or supportive of her people. They know what it is to live in fear. They live under Herod, whom we've talked about. He was a despot. He was capricious. His power was fueled by and wielded with anger. Unpredictable. It was unnerving and frightening. And now, in the midst of a setting where they no doubt flinched in fear of Roman soldiers as they marched by, even though they were common, she is given this role, and she is told that she is going to be pregnant. Already living a life in the shadow of fear, this is another layer. But what I love in this passage is that God allows room for Mary's humanity, allows room for her to process this impossible possibility, and doesn't punish her when she questions it. Her response is to ask how this is even possible. Fair enough. It doesn't make sense physically, since a young woman and the man to whom she was betrothed would not have been intimate. And the angel explains it to her. Not that the explanation really explains it at all, but she does have agency in this process. She listens to the angel's response. She considers it, and in the end responds with that all-gracious phrase, "May it be unto me as you have said." Wow. Like, just wow. How a young woman has the sense of self and the faith to receive something that even runs contrary to her understanding of what should be is amazing to me. An act of courage and bravery. What a heart she has cultivated to hear such weird, physics-defying, overwhelming news and respond with agreement. But she does. But for me, the next part is telling. Mary, having given consent to the plan presented by an angel, is often portrayed as saintly, which is fair. But we also see that she immediately departs to visit her significantly older cousin, Elizabeth. I mean, it kind of appears like she got the news, she agreed, and then she packed her bags and skedaddled right out of town. Now, there are plenty of reasons for her to have done this. Maybe she just wanted to be near a mother figure who was herself going through pregnancy. And they could share angel stories. You can't do that with many people. But Elizabeth's husband had also been visited by an angel. Maybe, understandably, she didn't want to be watched and talked about as her belly grew and her neighbors whispered about the pregnancy they could only assume was illegitimate. But whatever the reasons, it's fair to assume that Mary also was experiencing some fear. But her fear did not stop her from saying yes. Her fear did not paralyze her. It empowered her, and she refused to let it stop her. In the midst of whatever fear she was feeling, she allowed it to help move her forward. How do we look at Mary, at her ability to let her fear propel her into a new chapter, and think about letting our fear empower instead of impede us? Last week at the Advent Fair, was that just last week? I think it was. I was talking with Aaron, And I told him that I'm terrified of heights. I don't know if others of you are, but terrified. I hate that I'm afraid of heights. I don't like this about myself. So I've let that fear propel me to try new things, mostly in an attempt to overcome a fear and erase that from my traits. I've gone rock climbing, both indoor and outdoors. I've never sweat so much in my life. I went tandem hang gliding. I've walked over wobbly bridges between cliffs. Now, all of them successfully. I mean, I am here, so some level of success. Well, I didn't actually get very high when I went rock climbing. So notice that I was successful at these tasks, but I was not successful at obliterating my fear. It remained strong and healthy despite my attempts. But maybe getting rid of our fears isn't always the goal. I mean, if we wait until we're comfortable to take a risk, then it's not really a risk at all, right? And if we wait until our fear bubble has popped and our fears have dissolved, until we respond to a call to make a difference, we may never step out and try. Jeremiah said, but I'm only a boy. And Mary said, how will this be? And what is it that we say? What are our phrases in response to things we are called to do that are uncomfortable or that allow or cause the fear in us to bubble up? I've never done anything like that before. Right? If it's a new task or a new experience, that might be something that comes up for us. I've never done anything like that before. Maybe that's something other people do. It doesn't make them fearful, but it does me. Or, boy, I wouldn't know where to start, right? How do you start at something when you hear a little inkling of a call, but you don't know where to start? But that's why we're in community, and we don't have to do things alone. Not to mention Dr. Google helps out a lot. Or maybe what comes to mind is, but someone else would be better at it. I mean, maybe, but maybe that someone else isn't being called to it. You are. I mean, maybe someone could have been a better mother to a little baby God. She didn't have any mothering experience. But God called Mary, not someone with experience. Maybe we say, but it's not my time yet. Oh, well, we can say that for a long time, right? It's not my time yet. Not now. Now's not the right time. But maybe all of these, whatever our phrases are that bubble up in our defensiveness or our fear, are just that. They're ways of expressing our fears and putting something off or aside. But when we think back to the fears we posted on the walls, that we wrote on our Post-its a couple weeks ago, if you were here, many of them aren't going away anytime soon. We'd like them to, but some of them could keep us from doing things for a long time. Or maybe those fears, some of them, can propel us forward. And in no way do I want to minimize those fears. Some of them are very core, and they are all very real. But some of them might help propel us. We might have a fear of isolation. That's very real. Maybe that could propel us to connect, to reach out. A fear for the direction of our nation may push us to seek out actions where we can express dissent or do something different. Small or big actions, helping at Vose Elementary, going to a rally, whatever that looks like for you. I've already seen that a fear, and maybe it bounces back and forth between fear and a concern about the transitions here at Southminster Presbyterian. Well, they could just cause people to withdraw. Right? I'll come back when things are settled. I get that. But I don't see it doing that here at Southminster Presbyterian. And that says a lot about who you are, right? I see people drawing together to make sure that things are running smoothly, to keep things going, and even moving forward. I am so grateful for that, by the way. Of course, some of our fears don't present clear actions immediately, but all of them can draw us to prayer, to be praying for those things within us or beyond us. And prayer in and of itself is certainly an action. It's taking a step forward in our fear. In these days when fear is indeed all around us and perhaps too often within us, we can be reminded in these passages, in the lives of Jeremiah and Mary, that this isn't new. It's not a new human experience. This has happened in the past, and people have responded by stepping out and stepping forward. And you as a congregation have been good at doing that. You have a history of doing that. And some histories are worth repeating. So in these days, let us look to Jeremiah, let us look to Mary, to these young people who were just in their teens, and let us be reminded that in the midst of fear, we can move forward, and we can say yes to whatever it is God is calling us individually, in a friend group, and as a congregation, to do what God is calling us to do. May we do so. Amen.